I've eaten a lot of raccoon. Yes. The answer is yes. And I've eaten it hunting. I've actually had it served by my mom at the table away from hunting. And I have eaten raccoon. And yes, it's not uncommon at all. I'll tell you something that is one of my favorites is squirrel. And it's wonderful, and my mother could do a great job of it. And we all had our favorite pieces, and my dad and sister, I have one sibling, a sister, and they would fight over, not fight, but my mom and I, they were just my sister and I as for a sibling. My mom and I wouldn't even ask for the brain in a squirrel.
Oh, man.
And delicious, seriously.
My dad loves cow
My
brain.
sister always got it, or my dad.
The fight over the brain. Jared?
The fight over the brain. Good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here, of course, with Cowboy, Joe Boo, and the Funky Chicken. And as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Hope everybody's having a great weekend. We'll be doing we need to switch it up actually, now that the season is truly over, to Sundays where we do our members chat, because we originally started this 3 years ago after being just disappointed in the off season. I think it was 3 years ago. Might have been 4 years ago. But we've been doing a members chat, and it was a great way for our channel members to vent. Somehow we got invaded by Momo and Leo Bridgewater from other teams that are just coming to vent on the Cowboys. But we always do that during the season at 5 o'clock on Saturdays. Off season, we used to do it on Sundays. And so we'll switch it up next Sunday, 5 o'clock next week. This week, we'll keep it today because we didn't forewarn anybody about the change. So we'll be doing that today at 5 o'clock. In the meantime, a couple of things. I am probably going to get hate when you see the title of this, but I'm happy that Zack Martin retired. I'm happy not because I'm happy that he's done. I'm glad he's out of here and we're done with him. You know, get his lame ass out of here like people talk about with Dak Prescott. That's not what I mean. I'm glad that he retired as a Dallas Cowboy. There's something wrong with, I don't know if Tyron Smith tries to play another year or not, but when you see former players of ours that have been stalwarts go to other teams, it's something tragic about it. Seeing Tyron Smith going through the season in New York where the Jets were awful and him just literally falling apart, it just hurts. And I've seen too many. I mean, seeing Zeke Elliott going to New England and then coming back, it's just not the way that the players deserve. They deserve to go out with some dignity. And it's just like when Emmett went to the Cardinals, it's just like a piece of me inside died. It was like Tony Dorsett going to Denver, breaking his leg, and for what? Your legacy was already cemented. And so having him, I wish he was going out with the Super Bowl ring on top in that standpoint, and I wish he was going out not injured. But I'm happy that he's not going to just go ahead and say, I'm just going to take this someplace else. So he'll forever be only a Dallas Cowboy. Now here's a question for you, an interesting one. Last year we drafted Marshawn Nealon, and the comparable was DeMarcus Lawrence, that he was going to be the guy to replace DeMarcus Lawrence. Now here's an interesting take for you guys. Should the Dallas Cowboys consider bringing back DeMarcus Lawrence for one more year, see if we can get him to a team-friendly deal where we can keep him here to retire as a Dallas Cowboy? And because the new focus is stopping the run. Now, the first caveat is how is the foot? How legitimately? I don't want to, put on a wing and a prayer and that they hope that he'll be ready by training camp and could be. No, let's be sure that it's going to be totally healed. Because I've been waffling on the fence and thinking about this and saying, it's time for the next generation, so to speak. But you look at DeMarcus Lawrence, and DeMarcus Lawrence has been one of the best edge run stoppers in football when he's healthy. And I look at our team, we may end up losing Osa and Digizua. They may end up saying, as much as we'd like to keep Osa and Digizua, $20 million a year, we might be able to get 2 or 3 guys across the defensive line that help us. It won't be as good as Osa, but maybe we can fill in more holes. And that's the way you have to look at it. And one of the problems we've always had, and this goes back to Romo's days, when you look at us having Des Bryant and DeMarcus Ware, Tony Romo, and Tyron Smith and stuff, your roster has been so top-heavy that the guys that fill in sometimes are lesser players that just aren't as good. And when you lose 1 or 2 of those guys, you're screwed. Because the drop-off from the top to the bottom is so big. Now, I remember last year thinking that Stephon Gilmore, and I kind of said, I'm not sure how Diggs is going to be when he comes back. I was like, we got Deron Bland. We're good right there. But is Diggs going to be 100% coming back from the ACL? And that's where I thought keeping keeping him here would have been an insurance policy. Stephon Gilmore here would have been an insurance policy in case Diggs isn't ready. Well, it turned out it ended up being Deron Bland, who wasn't ready to play till week 12. And you look at that and say, yeah, that would have been a bonus add to have that veteran present there to work with the young guys as well as a guy just in case shit happens. We didn't do that, and it definitely was a move that we should have done. Now, we look at Marshawn Nealon, who's had flashes, but he also had some injuries and things and so on, and we don't know what we have. And when we look at our defensive front, we're kind of weak. And possibly bringing back DeMarcus Lawrence for 1 more year, because we're already paying $7 million in dead money from his other contract. Maybe what you do is you end up, because you have voidable years, you sign him to a 2-year deal, put bonus money into it, say, D-Law, we want you to stay here. You ain't got to move and stuff. We want you to be able to retire as a Cowboy, and we need you to be the bridge to the future. And that may be enough, especially if you say, doing this, we're trying to make one big push this year. So we need some help to try and say, let's get over the hump. And we're going to go out and we're going to go get, be active in free agency, and we're going to try and do some other things. Now, on the flip side of this, I will say, if you were to try and make a move for Myles Garrett, then forget this. Forget D-Law, because it's going to probably cost you $10 million for him. Because here's another way you look at it. If you were trading for Myles Garrett, you'd probably be okay with letting go Osa and not signing D-Law. If you're not going to make that move, and I'm not necessarily saying that's the move because that's going to take your next 2 number ones. I'm not sure that that's the best way to go. But if you are, then you're not going to get Osa and you're not going to go ahead and get D-Law. So the question you have to ask is this. Is my team better with Myles Garrett without D-Law and Osa and Digizua and my number 1 pick this year and next year? Because that's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. Which would you rather have? Myles Garrett, your first-round pick, D-Law, and Osa Odighizuwa. That's a tough call. Because you team up Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons, that would be a scary proposition. That will help out your defense a lot. Now, you could look at it and say, well, my first-round pick, that's Myles Garrett. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And you're plugging that hole. But you're also then still having to deal with the defensive line because you basically got Mozzie. So you're still going to need to get some more help on the defensive line. Now, that's a tough call. I am literally waffling on both sides of it because what you could look at and say is Myles Garrett will be a game changer probably for another 2-3 years. You could look at it and say maybe Osa was just a contract year. You know, he played well for a contract year, and D-Law could be injured all season, in which case you got nothing. I don't know, because you have to check with me on which day of the week, which way I want to go with this. Do I look and say Myles Garrett in the first-round pick? Yeah, there we go. I'm not going to be in Detroit, so if we don't have a first-round pick, I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But we clearly have to do more on the defense. And if you're not going to make a mega trade, I think the prudent thing would be to bring back DeMarcus Lawrence. Now, we've got a defensive line coach who sounds old school to me. And when I hear Aaron Whitecotton, he reminds me of being back at JMU. And I remember what Coach Przicki did to us one time. When he talked about you want to feel the burn in your lungs, I don't know if you've ever been and experienced that kind of burn. Now, I kind of did the other day because I'm old and out of shape, trying to get from the Afton Tunnel and having to walk up this mountain, basically, because I'm out of shape. And believe me, I was sucking some wind. But we had a practice that literally we run gassers, which is sideline to sideline to sideline and back, okay? So you got 5 times your sprinting. We did 10 of those, and then we did gassers end zone to end zone. And that wasn't good enough for them. They made us crab end zone to end zone. And that was literally where your lungs are on fire. And you're grasping for breath. It is literally hell. Let's listen to a little bit, shout out to 105.3 The Fan, who have Aaron Whitecotton on, talking about what he's planning to do with the defensive line.
Is a sacked quarterback. That's my vision for him. So that will be our focus and our goal for him to do what it takes to help the team win, and at the same time pressure the quarterback on a consistent basis. And he's really done that since he's been here in the NFL at a very high level, and I expect to see the same.
And we heard some similar stuff from Eberflus yesterday. It doesn't sound like there's going to be much disguising with Micah. Micah's just going to rush.
Hell yeah. I think, people get wrapped up in sack numbers. Fans especially get wrapped up in sack numbers. Pressure is just as important.
Yeah.
You pressure the quarterback, you get them off their timing, you get them, not being able to plant their front foot, you get weak throws, you get turnovers in the secondary. Pressure is if you were to tell me I was getting 5 sacks in a game, but that was the only pressure I was getting, or I was getting 0 sacks and 10 pressures, you might not go that far, but you're getting close to being the same. I might actually take the 10 pressures, no sack.
I mean, Sean keeps saying that I keep becoming more and more like Dan Orlovsky, that we're morphing into the same person.
That's not a good thing.
Michael Lombardi more and more every day, because that has been Michael Lombardi's contention for a long time is screw sacks. I want pressure. I want to force turnovers. I want to force, reckless decisions from the other team. A sack, especially in today's NFL, sacking somebody on first down gives you 2nd and 18, and today's NFL players can pick up that first down.
Absolutely.
So yeah, you guys are the same.
Look, Michael has fair points. He also I think he's just a gatekeeper. That's my issue with him.
He also knows who John Connolly is, the former governor of Texas.
Yeah, I know who John Connolly is. I know who Governor Connolly is. Okay, there's a difference.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know
right.
John.
This is Cut 24. This was a good question. They were right after he talked about Micah. Babe was joking with him a little bit, like, was that a just demand for you before you take this job? Was Micah's got to be on the defensive line? So they're joking around about it. But Babe had asked him. He said, how are you supposed to kind of game plan and spend this time getting your scheme together when you don't know which of your defensive linemen are even coming back?
There you go.
We always have all these conversations about what the team looks like with this guy, with that guy. I trust in the Jones family and Mr. McClay to do that and get the right people on the boat. The biggest thing that we go through right now is we give them a vision for what we're looking for. You know, give them, here are the traits that we love, here are the things that are important to us, and then we count on them to do a great job. And they have drafting and free agency here of getting those type of, and just having that open communication, so we're all on the same page about what we're looking for and what we want. That's the biggest thing, and it's been awesome.
Where's this guy from?
Where did he coach originally?
No, like, where's he from? Because I'm hearing
He sounds like Carter Freeman.
I'm hearing some guy. No, I'm hearing some Louisiana with.
Oh, that's a good
I
point.
detected a Persian accent.
I'm hearing a guy. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to look. He was so he's been around.
Guarantee it's somewhere in the South.
Certainly, I'm gonna have to look it up here, but I'll find out where he's from. But surely it's gonna have to be. We'll see how good your accent game is.
Okay.
But to mention that he talks about when he specifies, he says meeting with the Joneses and Will McClay and giving them parameters. That's a big part of what Will McClay likes to do whenever they get a new coach in here.
Yeah,
and
they're
the
meeting
issue
with
is
all of
usually
them.
they're swapping out. Because they're so stable with which coaches they have here, they're swapping out one guy or two coaches or something like that. Swapping out an entire coaching staff now means that Will McClay's got to set up time for, I need each of these coaches to meet with everybody in the personnel department and share with them, here are my parameters. And so it's a ton of work. But the fact that Aaron White kind of saying, hey, right now we're focusing a lot on giving them the things they need to go for a shopping list, sounds like the Cowboys are probably thinking, we might be losing some depth this offseason, and we might need to replenish it, and we need to know what they want.
Very disappointed in you, Sean. You were you said Louisiana, right?
Well, that's what it sounds like. My buddy from Louisiana.
Okay, I get you. Because you were a NASCAR guy.
Yeah, well, not by choice.
You were a NASCAR guy, and there is a very distinct
North Carolina?
Charlotte accent in the NASCAR world.
You know what? I don't know if that's that far off. You know, it was. If I said it's a NASCAR accent, there you go.
You could have.
That could be a little draw in there. There's a draw.
I mean, it's basically the South. I mean, it literally has North in the name, but you were kind of. I mean, I consider North Carolina the South. So
Come on, guys, get to
I
it.
consider it. It is.
It is. All right. Next clip here. He talks about we're communicating what we want, and this was some of the stuff that I shared yesterday.
I like this part.
Seemed to get people intrigued about what they want to do. Asked Aaron White, okay, well then, what are you looking for in defensive linemen?
Here we go.
You know, we need explosive athletes. We need guys that are change the line of scrimmage, and they're great versus the run, and they also affect the passer. So those are the biggest things that we look for in those, just these explosive athletes that play on the other side of the line of scrimmage.
You talk about effort being important for what you want to do. Is effort something you think you can coach out of people, or does that need to be a trait they already have?
I think there's a combination. You can always improve. But we can't bend on playing hard, and it's a consistent conversation from the first week in training camp until the week of the Super Bowl. Run to the ball, and I'm not talking about just like, pretend like you're running to the ball, like sprint to the ball every time till your lungs are on fire. Go back and do it again. And so I feel like there's a little bit of both. Like there's some people who just don't have it in them, and maybe they're just not right for us. But I think that's something that we can consistently work on. It will always be emphasized. I can promise you that.
And that has been.
And see, that's my thing is you want 11 hats. That's what they used to always say to us, to the ball. And thinking about old school coaches and things, what the coaches we worked on fundamentals, and we had things that were like drills like pursuit angles, and I hated them. But basically, you have to understand that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I remember when we played against the Cleveland Browns in 2020, and that play on that reverse to Odell, will forever be burned into my head because I looked at the pursuit angles and they're terrible. You don't want to have, as they used to call them, a banana route where it's curved. You know, if you are skeet shooting, you're not firing at where they are. You're firing where they're going to be. So we would have everybody lined up. And as the nose guard, the nose tackle, my pursuit angle is basically almost to the end zone, knowing that my fat ass can't run like, say, an edge rusher would or a D-back and things. And so that would be the mesh point. And that's what we're talking about here. Your ass better be sprinting to the ball carrier. And you got to get the right angles of pursuit. And sometimes I feel like sometimes the fundamentals. One thing Dan Quinn was key on was the fundamentals. I don't know that Dan Quinn necessarily had as much talent as we think we had on the defense, or if he actually just got the most out of them. Because I can't look and say that the Cowboys have had tremendous defensive interior linemen that are just, you know, guys that could just get in there and just take on the blocks. More of what Dan Quinn did was because he was able to scheme and finesse players in positions to succeed for the most part. Problem is when you go against great teams that have a lot of great players, it's hard to try and finesse them. And that's where we really need to get guys that are truly warriors that love contact and love just literally pounding their skulls against the guy in front of them. So we'll see how all this works out. I do like our coaching staff that we've developed a lot. I really do. Seeing these guys, they're younger. I think they relate more to today's players. I think they're giving a fresh perspective. And now that everything has changed, like they were pointing out, Will McClay now is meeting with every single coach and trying to find out exactly the type of players that fit with what you want to do. And maybe, just maybe, this change and this breath of fresh air will be positive for the Cowboys. Can't guarantee it, but you know what? We've been doing the same thing over and over again. It's time to change shit up, and whether you want to or not, it's changed. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys at 5 o'clock Eastern, and peace out. Stephen A.